really quick one. I wanted to address a question I was asked a couple of weeks ago, which I kind of dismissed at the time and I shouldn't have, from one of you. So apologies for that, and I'll get to it now. You asked me when I talk in class about continuity links, what am I talking about? And they're an important part of the structure of any effective essay, and they kind of fall under the remit of coherence of delivery. Now, I'm not suggesting that like every teacher in Ireland will use the phrase continuity link, but we all understand that an essay should feel like think about the image of a train. Okay, so the essay has a destination. Okay, so the engine of the train brings the carriages and the passengers to that destination. So the thesis of your essay, the central point that you're arguing, regardless of what it is, that's your destination. Everything is pointed towards that. Then your paragraphs are like the separate carriages on the train. Now, if the carriages aren't connected to each other, when the engine pulls off, they stay behind and it makes no sense. So there has to be a joining, a coupling between the carriages so that when the engine pulls off, everything follows neatly behind. It all makes sense. And that's what continuity gives an essay. When you're moving from one paragraph to the next, often when I read essays, and as you know, I do that every day of my working life, and sometimes when I'm not meant to be working. But when I read essays, I often see the student has finished one point, and then they kind of randomly jump to the next, and there's no sense of fluency or the term continuity between the end of that point and the next one. So I just want you to be aware of the importance of linking your paragraphs together. That's all I mean when I say continuity, because if your paragraphs are linked together, and it's not a complicated thing, then you're more likely to score those coherence of delivery marks, which are for organisation, structure, and you'll see the marking scheme constantly says sequencing of ideas. So let's look at 3 examples. Here's a Macbeth sample pair of paragraphs. It's in response to a question that was asked, I think, on a mock exam about how Shakespeare's use of imagery and symbolism heightens the drama of the play. So I've written, here's paragraph 1. Of course, the single most important dramatic event in the play is the regicide. Macduff plays an important role in communicating the gravity of Macbeth's crime when in Act 2, Scene 3, he discovers the king's body and laments, most sacrilegious murder had broke up the Lord's anointed temple and stolen hence the life of the building. So there I've got my topic sentence, I've got my evidence to show I know the play, and I'm focusing on that particular line. Now I'm going to analyse that line in the light of the question which asked about his effective use of imagery and symbolism. This extraordinary metaphor, you're saying extraordinary, you clearly think it's effective. A metaphor is a form of symbolism. Communicates with clarity the gravity of Macbeth's crime, that's what it does. The image of a church being defiled, now you're getting down, you're drilling down into the image, and the association of that church with the king's body allows the audience to understand, so that heightens the dramatic impact, how Macbeth's crime is offensive, not just to the people of Scotland, but also to God. So that's a good paragraph, which is, question-facing, evidence-based, and has a little bit of critical thinking and analysis. And it depends on the teacher. It's a good paragraph, whether it's top-notch stuff, whether they want a little bit more depth, but it's a good, strong paragraph. Now you're going to move into another connected paragraph. And what a lot of students do is they have something else to say, for example, about an image or Macduff, and they shove it into the one paragraph, making the paragraphs too dense, too long, too difficult to follow. So it's nice to split your paragraphs up into kind of short, interconnected sections. So here I am still on Macduff, but I'm going on to another part of the play, later in the play, and a different image, which I'm going to analyse. And all I do at the start of the paragraph is say also. So later in the play, Macduff also adds to the dramatic impact of Macbeth's story when he describes the despot's behaviour and the impact of his tyranny on the ordinary people of Scotland. Now that's all a continuity link is. You're still on the question, so the question links your different paragraphs, and you're using this link word, like you do in comparative, to join the discussion that you made in the previous paragraph to the discussion that you're going to make in this paragraph. So that's all a continuity link is. It's a little link word which shows that there's a roll-on, a connection, a coherence between what you're saying in the first paragraph and what you're going to say in the second paragraph. And often the question is the thing that you can use as your link. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to show you another example. Here's an opening paragraph to an Elizabeth Bishop question. And here are 2 development paragraphs. And again, there are links between them. So the opening paragraph, remember the rules, keep it nice and short, question facing. Elizabeth Bishop addresses numerous interesting and challenging themes in her poetry. Her mastery of her language and her narrative approach results in poems which are rich, nuanced, and reward repeated reading. One of the best examples of her ability to successfully employ a storytelling style to explore complex thematic concerns is The Fish. So I'm on the question asked about variety of thematic concerns, narrative approach, and so I've mentioned numerous themes, I've mentioned narrative, storytelling, so that's my thesis, I'm question facing, and then I know in my plan, I'm going to start with the fish, so I mentioned the fish at the end of my paragraph, so that when I move into it in the next paragraph, there's a natural flow. So ending the paragraph by mentioning the name of the fish, and then beginning the next paragraph with the same name, that's continuity. There's a sense of planning. Okay, that's my introduction over. Now moving to the first point in my essay, and there's a sense that they're connected together. Similarly down here, I end this paragraph by saying, the moment of epiphany is a defining aspect of the poet's style of writing and is one of the reasons why she is able to explore her themes so successfully. And then in the next paragraph, those themes include identity struggle and how easy it is to find and to feel, to be and to feel defeated. So you can see I'm ending this paragraph on themes, and there's a link through to the next paragraph when I start on themes. So it feels like there's a natural flow. It's like talking to your friends that, you don't have that sense of you have to stop and think what to say next. That, there's a natural connection between the end of one part of the conversation and the beginning of the next part. And that's what structure gives you. It's what planning gives you if you can plan effectively as a writer. Final example of what a continuity link comes from this little sample that I've written in response to the 2022 personal essay task, which was asked about objects or things in your life that are of value, I think was the phrase, okay? And here, this was a kind of in the middle of the essay, and I had talked about this book at the end of the previous paragraph that I thought was important, and I began this paragraph with, have you ever read that book? So the connection between mentioning the book in the previous paragraph and then bringing it into this paragraph, there's a connection between them. If not, you should. It explains the power of screens and of social media, not in a preachy way, but in a scientific, thoughtful, easy to understand way. Sorry, this is not from the personal essay, it's from, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so you can see the connection through. And what I'm showing is, this was from the speech about, it was the personal essay, I'm getting it wrong. It was the personal essay about personal growth and learning. My apologies. So it is personal essay, it just wasn't the one on objects, okay? So you're talking about, in this one, the student is talking about books that are of that they learn from. And look, when I think of the satisfaction and personal growth that comes from learning, so that's your question-facing commentary, there are very few better examples in my experience than reading Harry, that's the book, Harry's Invaluable Book. So you started off referring to the book that was mentioned at the end of the previous paragraph, then you've gone into this and you talked about the value you got from that, what you learned, and then you end with invaluable book, and then you use that as a link phrase into the next paragraph where you talk about other invaluable books. So that's a continuity link. That phrase, invaluable book, really rings true to me. I've loved reading ever since I was a kid. Informal, conversational language, use of the personal pronoun I, confessional tone. These are all the features of good comparative or personal writing. Little anecdote. My father refused to let me go to sleep without first reading a story for me and my sisters. If you're going to tell an anecdote, make it authentic, make it realistic, add a little bit of detail in. As a child, my favourite was The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson. I still remember my favourite part, and then a little bit of magic, throwing in the quote from the story, showing that you're telling the truth. And she gazed at listen, come here, if you haven't read this, it's one of the great childhood books. And she gazed at the sky, the sea, the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand. She gazed and gazed, amazed by it all. And she said to the whale, I feel so small. Just magical. Now again, that's personal response vocabulary. And when I reflect on it, reflective, that's part of a good personal essay. Such a wonderful, inspirational story for a young child to read. However, when I was 4, my dad was reading that to me. Such thoughts were far from my mind. I just loved the story, the pictures, and the fact, I think that I have it here, that we were all cuddled up together on the couch before bedtime. So that's what a continuity link is. It's talking about something at the end of a paragraph, which allows you to segue in to the point in the next paragraph. It's writing in a way where there are connections between the different sections of your essay. It's adding a little bit of coherence to your writing. I hope that made sense, and I hope you found it useful. And again, I apologize it's taken so long to make the video. I am a very busy dude. Cheers, folks.